Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Short Circuit. I'm your host, Darryl Willis, CVP of Energy and Resources at Microsoft, and I'm excited to have you join us as we dive into the critical challenges and trends surrounding the decarbonization and energy transition of the oil and gas industry. And with us today, we've got a very exceptional guest, Kari Anne Kjolaas-Holland, Senior Vice President of Digital Services and Operations at SLB, an established brand in the energy sector, formerly known as Schlumberger. Kari Anne has over 20 years of experience in the industry and a remarkable background at SLB. With a global footprint in more than 100 countries and employees representing twice as many nationalities, SLB works on innovation in the oil and gas industry, delivering it at scale, supporting and enabling decarbonization efforts globally, and driving and scaling new energy systems that will ultimately accelerate the energy transition. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. And before we dive into the need for data and analytics and AI for decarbonization and energy transition across industries, I'd like to take a couple of minutes and understand a little bit more about your background and track record in the industry and get you to share a bit about the transition Schlumberger went through from being called Schlumberger to SLB.
Oh, thank you, Darryl, for having me, and I really look forward to the discussion. As I've been on the journey, SLB has also changed, and as you noted, we rebranded about 2 years ago in 2022. So it's been about a year, feels like two. And in that time, we've received a lot of really positive feedback from the changes from our own employees, from customers, from the communities, from the wider industry. And it's a big deal for us because it's not a name change. It's really a complete rebranding of the business. We put sustainability at the center of everything we do in terms of our purpose, our culture, really what drives us. And it's a reflection of the fact as we as a society is facing the greatest balancing act at the moment, really. We need to provide reliable, accessible energy to meet growing demand, to feed, house, and sustain society. But we need to do it while rapidly decarbonizing for a sustainable future. And we believe as a company with a century-long history in this industry, we are uniquely positioned to rise to that challenge. So becoming SLB really underscores our vision for decarbonized energy. It affirms that transition from the world's largest oilfield services company to a global technology company that's focused on driving energy innovation for a balanced planet. And it didn't come sort of out of the blue because we've spent years, decades really laying the groundwork for increasing focus on low and zero carbon energy technology solutions. Well, if you look at our commitment to digital and cloud technologies, it's really for the last years enabling more efficient and more autonomous operations. SLB are providing solutions across the industry to drive more efficient operations and really to help clean up exploration and production operations, reducing waste, lowering energy use, so there's a lower environmental impact. And then 3 years ago in 2020, we launched a new energy business to explore partnerships and new technology opportunities in low carbon and carbon neutral technologies. So that has set in motion years-long journey to expand our role in the new energy future, where really we believe our technology and what our expertise can really find new ways in which we contribute to energy. And finally, the one that I'm the most proud of personally, 2021, we became the first company in the energy services industry to commit to net zero targets, inclusive of scope 3 emissions from the use of our technologies. So lots of moving parts, but it really it's a fundamental reshaping and reimaging of what we do.
That's fantastic. And one of the things I didn't really appreciate, Kari Anne, until I heard Olivier talk about it, your CEO, was even in the branding of SLB, the graph that sits underneath the SLB is symbolic of the path and the journey that you all are on. And it is quite ambitious as a oilfield services company that you all would make that kind of declaration or intent, state that kind of intent for net zero across scopes 1, 2, and 3. That's huge. So I wanted to shift a little bit and talk about what you're doing as a company. And I'll start by saying that, global energy demand is expected to increase about 47, almost 50% over the next 30 years, mainly driven by the increase in population that we'll see between now and 2050 or so, as well as economic growth. In addition to that, emissions are going to increase, and the oil and gas sector in particular is responsible for something like on the order of 70% of all global emissions. Energy is at a decade high in terms of the cost. Inflation is running rapid around the world, and there's a climate crisis underway as we all continue to think about and talk about. And decarbonization needs to be accelerated. So I would love to get your thoughts and your perspective on how the industry is leveraging data. One of the things I remember about my time in industry is that it loved collecting data, but I think there's a big opportunity for us to use data better. So really get your perspective on how the industry is leveraging data and analytics and AI to increase the production of cleaner hydrocarbons, to reduce emissions, and ultimately to decarbonize the value chain as it really seeks to help orchestrate an orderly energy transition.
No, I think that is very true. Look, meeting that challenge that you're describing means step changes in the way we operate. Incremental change isn't going to do it. We don't have time for incremental change, right? So what we look at is really three distinct phases, I think, that runs concurrently. And I think digital data, analytics, AI plays a critical role in all three of them. You're right. This is a very data-intensive industry, but it's only a fraction of that data today that actually drives decisions, that actually drives operational decisions, right? And the first thing is around measure, right? So we are measuring a multitude of things today, but really we need to continue to gather that data, and there's supplemental data that we need, right? It's about knowing which reserves to exploit. And that means, really selecting, when we make field development decisions, reserves and development plans where the carbon impact can be minimized. So that our subsurface technologies, the way we characterize reserves, the way we actually screen prospects to look for prospects with the lowest emissions potential, and really manage that portfolio of what we produce in line with each company's vision and commitment on how they're going to manage the carbon footprint, really is, it puts another layer of complexity on top of what we already do today when we're trying to really optimize portfolios in terms of economic performance. We are now also optimizing in terms of carbon footprints. And the second part is in terms of planning, field development planning. This is an industry that everything is constantly dynamic, right? So AI and analytics plays a huge outsized role here, and we are not able to really leverage more than a fraction of the data we have, right? Our customers today are using simulation tools and pushing AI in terms of optimizing how the field is developed, how the well is drilled, how the processing plant is designed and improved, how the supply chain is managed for remote locations, right? How many helicopter rides, how many thousands of miles do we drive trucks? It's all of that. This is being optimized today, but it's being optimized in very discrete silos many times. If you actually want to optimize the system, once again, the only way you can do it is through AI and massive scenario simulations. And finally, if you measure and you plan, and then in terms of acting and how you actually run your operations, that has a place to play, and digital solutions and data plays a role here as well, right? Energy efficiency, electrification, automation has a real role to play in terms of how we actually automate. We reduce the footprint, we reduce the number of people we put in potentially risky environments that has to be managed. We really minimize things like transport and both emissions and time associated with that. And, and once again, data and AI is the only way that can make that possible. All of these systems are too complex for people to sit and manually plan out what is the best path.
Fascinating and definitely a huge challenge. So, Kari Anne, at Microsoft, we recently announced our new product, the Azure Data Manager for energy. We call it ADME for short. It was developed in partnership with SLB and several of our key energy customers. And ADME's objectives are to help energy companies to drive actionable insights with an open energy platform. And I emphasize the word open, really in search of innovative solutions to increase operational efficiency, to reduce the overall cost of exploration production, and ultimately to drive down and minimize the carbon footprint. How do you see this new jointly developed solution enabling the industry to become more agile, more innovative, more collaborative, or do you?
I do, and I think you hit that when you talk about actionable, right? Well, our ambition here is that together we will help customers fundamentally change the way they work, because we want a step change. We want the workflows to be faster, and we want better quality decision making, right? That has huge operational impact. So we're moving from a way of working that we've done and we have tweaked and perfected over decades, but with very real limitations in terms of data being scattered. And it could be in different formats, it's inefficient to use. You have teams in different disciplines iterating by, converting files and sending back. There's a very slow, laborious loop. And that really limits that cross-domain collaboration. So the new ways of using a unified data platform, it's really, I think we are just scratching the surface of it today. And we are already seeing customers that are really pulling, and really there's a hunger in the industry for it, right? Search and find all your data in one place. As people across, be that drillers, geologists, geophysicists, all actually going to the same source for data and being able to see real time the updates and really share the view of the world in one single environment. That breaks down the silos and enables cross-domain work. That cuts literally weeks out of workflows, right? That used to be really labor intensive, and the majority of that work non-value add, right? It's really overhead. So if you get data in real time, you can make decisions in real time. And that can also bridge a gap. We were talking about cross-domain that's very real in terms of planning and operations today in many customers, where they work on different time frames, but you actually real-time data allows a data flow that can improve models. So you can work from a much better understanding of the subsurface. You can actually take decisions in the time frame that allows you to impact operations. And that means that the reality is that we really have cross-domain team working together as opposed to working in isolation and coordinating with each other, right? So I can go on about that for as long as you want, but really I think this is something that hits a pain point for the industry that's very real, that the customers see. They know the cost of it. They know the opportunities that it's possible to unlock. And that's why we're seeing all the engagement and discussion in the industry around the platform. And the openness part of it, super important. Every single customer, every single organization has their own view, their own secret sauce, we say, right? They have that one thing that you do differently, or the one, procedure, IP, algorithms that they believe differentiate them and that they give them an edge in relation to the competition. So they want that common platform, they want the ability to scale, and they want the ability to inject their way of working into that environment.
That is absolutely right. And I want to say that thank you for that answer. And I just wanted to reiterate how happy we are to be collaborating with SLB around the ADME product and working with customers and partners across the energy sector. I'd like to take a moment and talk a little bit about carbon reduction. And globally, there's been a lot of investment in particular in things like carbon capture as well as direct air capture, all in service of reducing global warming. And this is an area of interest for Microsoft, mainly because we've got a net zero target by 2030. We've also said that we would take all the carbon that we put in the atmosphere out by 2050. All the carbon that's been generated by Microsoft since 1975 or 76, when Microsoft was founded, by 2050. And that's a big, ambitious, challenging target that we can't do without partnership and without doing things in concert with CCS projects and direct air capture. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what is SLB's value proposition and offering in this space.
Microsoft has really been leading here in terms of your target setting for going into this space. SLB has a long history on that topic as well. We have been involved in more than 120 carbon capture projects worldwide. We have a history of about 25 years of operating in that space, and we're investing even more attention to that now through the SLB New Energy division. Now, if I look at it from a digital perspective, a lot of our base digital technologies apply to carbon capture, right? In terms of reservoir characterization, if you're going to inject carbon into the ground, you want to do this safely, and you want the carbon to stay in the ground.
Right.
So a lot of the expertise around subsurface characterization, around making sure you have a seal and making sure you are not affecting local geology, all of that really, in terms of de-risking site characterization, in terms of placement, etc., all of that is directly applicable. Secondly, you are going to have to optimize the system in terms of capture, compression, transportation, all of that, everything that we talk about in terms of scenario simulation when it comes to oil and gas production. Those same simulators, yes, the physics is slightly different when it comes to carbon, but that simulation expertise and design expertise is absolutely vital. So we are today still engaged in all of those areas of carbon capture in terms of providing the technology that's needed to really make the ambition a reality, right? Yeah. In addition to that, we have about 150 or so projects around low carbon, I would say. Hydrogen, wind, geothermal, in terms of de-risking site characterization and placement of offshore wind. If you're going to put large infrastructure anywhere, you need to understand something about the ground you're going to put them on, and you need to make sure that you can do that safely and optimize the placement, right? We have process simulators that are being applied globally for hydrogen feasibility assessments, model electrolyzers to determine cell efficiency, production rates, power, voltage requirements. We don't start from scratch in these new industries, right? A lot of the processes can really, a lot of the things we have used and we are using to both optimize and decarbonize the oil and gas industry from the short to medium term, we need to take that knowledge and put it into, and those digitals into low carbon projects directly to really speed up the process and the scaling of those.
I have one last question I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind. And my last question is really around the future of the energy industry and how it will evolve. And I would love for you, Kari Anne, to share with us a couple of things you're most excited about as you think about the energy landscape and how it's changing and what that'll look like over the next 10 or say 20 years.
I think that if you talk about the future, we're talking about an energy system, right? The energy industry, sustainability, security, affordability, they're all tightly intertwined. And they're intertwined with security of our communities, the living standards of our communities. So we need to look at it all as one system. So if we start with security, right? So we all know, unfortunately, recent global events that has shown that the reliance on global supply chains of oil and gas is really, the political and economic impact for families is massive when those are disrupted. So we know that we're going to have to diversify. The future of the energy system needs to be diversified towards energy sources: hydrogen, geothermal, solar, onshore, offshore wind, nuclear, etc. Right? And there are local communities are going to make their own decisions about where they place their bets. But countries are actively now engaging, and with much more urgency than they did, in finding ways to diversify, not being overly dependent on one energy type or one source, be that regional or political, right? Mm-hmm. So that diversification is going to really create a lot of different regional strategies, right? It's based on access to resources, the growth of the population in the region, political will, available of energy sources locally, and it's not a one size fits all. It's really a societal discussion, right? And then we know that overall, everybody knows that the new energy system also needs to be significantly lower carbon, right? The sum of this needs to very quickly shift. So the opportunity here is, I don't see a conflict between the security and the decarbonization, right? The opportunity here is to address both diversification and decarbonization simultaneously, right? Electrification, energy storage, access to minerals, all of that will play together, and they will all play together in, making sure that we secure the economic security while we transition to no sources. Yeah, it's the dynamism of this. And the way this discussion is accelerating really gives us a lot of exciting opportunities to work with our customers, with our partners, with our employees as well, that are very much invested in this, to come up with the new solutions that we need as an industry and as a society.
Kari Anne, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts, your insights, and your perspectives. I appreciate the fact that our missions and values at SLB and Microsoft are aligned when it comes to addressing the energy trilemma and using technology to provide clean, reliable, secure, and affordable energy to the world. I'm excited, and I'm also confident that we can address these challenges working together and in concert with each other. Once again, Kari Anne, thank you so much for joining us for the Short Circuit today.
Well, thank you, Darryl, for having me. Really enjoyed the discussion.
Please join us next time as we unpack hot topics and trends surrounding the energy transition. Take care.